This is Gareth Southgate, and this is the Three Lions podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions podcast. My name is Russell Osborne, and thank you as always for tuning in, and likewise thank you for any comments you may make through any of the social media channels, be it Twitter, Facebook or Instagram. They do all mean a lot. And in this period of flux that we find ourselves in, with still no England games to talk about at the moment. Although I say that because shortly before recording this, the England team have announced a home friendly against Wales for Thursday the 8th of October. This shortly before the scheduled Nations League home games against Belgium and Denmark on the 11th and 14th respectively. Now, the last time we faced Wales was that great day in Lens during Euro 2016, which incidentally we mentioned on the previous episode in the last of our lookbacks on England at the European Championships, which is still available in all the usual places. Now, this will be the 103rd meeting between the two sides, and the last time we faced them at Wembley was 2011. Remember who scored the winning goal that day, or the only goal? Ashley Young. Now, of course, nearer the time, we'll do one of our preview episodes. Been a while since I've done one of those. But of course, what we all want to know is, can we attend? That we don't know at the moment. But the FA, at the moment, in an email are saying, and I quote, "In keeping with current government guidelines, the game is scheduled to be played behind closed doors." But they then follow it up with, "We will continue to adhere to government guidelines and liaise with relevant authorities, and supporters will be notified should arrangements change and tickets become available." So basically, it's a wait and see scenario. But I feel like a donkey with a carrot dangling in front of me. And I'm also thinking, 3 games in the space of 6 days? I can't imagine it's gone down too well with some Premier League clubs. Although perhaps on the plus side, it'll give Gareth the option of some player rotation. We'll see. Now, in the meantime, I've been periodically speaking with England fans about their first England away game. And in the past, I've spoken about my first trip back in 2001 to Greece. We've been to Germany and Ukraine with supporters, and often tournaments have been that first step for many on an away adventure. Perhaps the idea of a World Cup or a Euros feels a little safer than a friendly or a qualifier. Coming up in a moment, we'll speak with England fan Matthew Halliday about his first game, and we'll also pay tribute to Jack Charlton, who recently passed away. I'd like to welcome to the Three Lions podcast. We're back doing another one in our series of Your First England Away Game. We're going to Sweden for this one. And over there, I'd like to welcome Matthew Halliday. Matthew, hello.
Hello, Russell.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And yourself?
All good, thank you very much. You've been in touch. You've told me that there's a game, your first England away game. And I thought, oh, yes, I wasn't at this particular one. I want to know more about it. In fact, it was a tournament that I didn't go to. Go on, enlighten us. Which was the game, your first England away game?
So I had the pleasure of going to the dead rubber of Costa Rica 0, England 0 in the last group stage game of the 2014 World Cup in Brazil.
What a first game.
I know. There was no goals. When I look back at it, I do recall that it was the last England appearances that Frank Lampard and Steven Gerrard made. And I'll never forget the reception that they got from the England fans behind the goal at the end of the game. It went on for ever and ever.
Really?
It was. It obviously really showed how much respect the the players and the fans had for each other. It was incredible, given that obviously the World Cup campaign was very poor from our standards, and obviously it was another bad 0-0 result. But I just remember the fans just reaction to both Gerrard and Lampard at the end.
Well, obviously we'd lost to Italy and Uruguay previously. The supporters over there had done a lot of miles just getting to Brazil in the first place, but going to Manaus, then Sao Paulo, and then on to Belo Horizonte, which was where that game against Costa Rica was. And I had a quick look back over the highlights of it, and there were a few on this particular game, but I did also hear that the supporters were singing "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life" as well.
That's right.
Kind of sums up England supporters. Always got a smile there eventually, haven't we? Considering those two results previous to it.
Yes, exactly.
This particular game, yes, it ended 0-0, and I also read that as of this game, England had drawn more games at World Cups 0-0 than anyone else. Was 11 times.
Yeah, I actually saw that when preparing for this call as well. We probably read the same article. Yeah, I think it's a brilliant statistic. It wasn't really something that I knew beforehand at all. I can think of the Nigeria game in 2002. That was 0-0.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
The Algeria game in 2010, that was 0-0.
You're bringing them all back to me. I was there for both of those.
Oh no, sorry to hear.
Go on. So how did it all come about? How did you get your tickets? And what was the feeling like when you were boarding the plane? And take us back to how it all came about.
So I applied for tickets via the general FIFA ballots, which took place the year before, at the end of 2013, and I was able to get a ticket for the England-Costa Rica match then. I know that FIFA also have later ticket sales, once they realise how many tickets they can sell to the public. So I also picked up some more tickets in the months before, and I ended up going to 5 games in total, but just this one England game. So
were you, just specifically on the England game to start with, when you got that, what was your feelings? We think, Costa Rica game, we'll win that, won't we? Yeah, or almost that it could be a game where maybe we need a point to be in the top 2 of the group. Mm. And as it happens, I actually flew out to Brazil the day after we got knocked out, because we lost to Uruguay on the Thursday evening. And then on the Friday evening, Italy played Costa Rica. And I think Costa Rica beat Italy, which then meant that we had no chance of getting out of the group. So it was quite strange to be flying out to Brazil when England were already going home. You weren't the only one, though. There's a lot of other people had done the same thing, I think. Yeah, well, but judging by the amount of England fans that were, staying in my accommodation in Belo Horizonte, yeah, you're right, I wasn't the only one. There did seem to still be quite a lot of positivity, as you say. Everyone was looking on the bright side of life, and I do remember being just amazed by how many fans were still there, and obviously cheering on the nation. So what other games did you go and see? Yeah, obviously the England-Costa Rica game was the first one, and then I travelled to Recife, and there I saw the world champions Germany against USA. That was a group stage game, which the Germans won, unsurprisingly. Mm. And then a few days after that, I actually had the pleasure of seeing Costa Rica play again. That was the last 16 game. So obviously at the time of getting tickets, I was hoping that I would see England as group winners play in that tie, but it was actually Costa Rica that won the group. Costa Rica won on penalties against Greece. Obviously it was a draw. I think it was 1-1. Then I
travelled further north and I went to Salvador, where I saw Belgium against USA in a last 16 game. That was when Tim Howard made a very, very high number of saves, and he got a call from Barack Obama I think the day afterwards to congratulate him on his performance.
Yeah, I remember that.
So that was the best game that I saw, and then the fifth game was the quarterfinal between Belgium and Argentina, and that was in the capital, Brasilia, and Argentina won that 1-0 to then advance to the semi-finals.
So you got in a good amount of games in the time that you were there.
I did.
For the reasons that I'd moved house and I had my daughter on the way. I didn't get to go to this one. So what was Brazil like as a country and a country that's hosting the World Cup?
I found it very welcoming. The people there obviously love their football, but also they were very recipient of all the international fans that had come to visit their beautiful country. And I remember going to when I was in Rio, for traveling purposes, I remember going to the fan park numerous times on the Copacabana beach, and the setting for that was just perfect. It was it was a brilliant place to watch some of the games on the big screen there. And I was actually there for the notorious Germany 7 Brazil 1 semi-final game in the fan park, that is. And I just remember when it was the full-time whistle, the heavens just completely opened. It was as if God was like crying. I'll never forget that some Brazilians just started dancing, which just shows how much joy they have for life, really.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was working that evening and I came out of work, and it must have been about half time, and I turned the radio on knowing that it was Germany, Brazil on at the time. And was it about 5-1 at half time, I think, or something like that? And I just couldn't believe it. It was absolutely unbelievable, that result, 7-1 in the end. And what a place to have seen it, though, on Copacabana Beach.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I mean, obviously, most people there were obviously Brazilian fans, and there were barely any German fans there. If there were, they were obviously heavily outnumbered. And it was, 6 years on, it started there with one of the most memorable moments of my life. It was very heartbreaking, and you felt incredibly sorry for the nation, because this is a country that I've been traveling in for over 2 weeks by that stage. And obviously, you're there in the build up to the semi-final. They beat Colombia in the quarterfinals. They beat Chile on penalties in the last 16. So you're kind of living the moments with the Brazilians, especially that England had gone out.
Yeah.
So it was unbelievable what happened in that semi-final.
Yeah, it's one that I do remember after seeing the highlights of it. It's just an amazing game. I mean, going back to the Costa Rica game, as I'm afraid we have to, really.
Sure.
I mean, it was a game I remember where I watched that. I was actually watching that at Luton Airport Arrivals Lounge, waiting to pick up my granddad for that one. And it was one of those ones where I was like, waiting for him to come through, watching the board, and then glancing over to the game, but knowing at the same time, we're out, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, hearing what you said about the England supporters out there is always good to hear. What do you remember about the stadium? Was it Estadio Mineral, I think it was?
Yeah, that's right. So this was the stadium that they redeveloped for this World Cup. So the structure outside has a lot of, dark greyish concrete, but the way it's structured is quite impressive. And inside they did a really good job of making it look nice and modern. It is slightly oval shaped, so there is a bit of distance between the pitch and the stands, which obviously is a bit of a drawback. I would say that as a fan of English football with all our rectangular stadiums.
Yeah.
It was still a nice stadium, and obviously it became very iconic with what happened, with the Brazil semi-final a few weeks later.
Yeah. Daniel Sturridge had a fair few opportunities in that game. He should have put one or two of them away, really, I think.
Yeah, I remember there were if a couple of chances, and that England did play rather well. But, unfortunately, at the end of the day, it was a dead rubber. And Costa Rica just needed a point to top the group. So they were quite happy to sit back and just see if they could chance their arm, basically.
Yeah. I mean, do you remember much of the team that day?
I remember that they made quite a few changes. I certainly remember Jack Wilshere starting, who at the time was, considered to be the next big thing going forwards after the tournament. So I remember being happy that he was, starting the game.
Yeah, so I mean, there was Ben Foster in goal, Phil Jones, Luke Shaw was there, Ross Barkley, Gary Cahill, Chris Smalling, Jack Wilshere, as you say, Frank Lampard. It was, in fact, Frank's, I think as you mentioned, it was his last game. He was captain for the day. Daniel Sturridge, Adam Lallana, James Milner. That was the starting 11. Then Raheem Sterling came on, and Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard actually came on for Jack Wilshere, and it was Steven Gerrard's last cap as well. And Wayne Rooney came on as well. So there was a few players that are still in the fray at the moment. Obviously, Raheem Sterling, Luke Shaw can be on the fringes on the odd occasion, but a lot of those players now are either still playing or a few are in management as Frank Lampard and Steve Gerrard. Wayne Rooney as well at the moment, aren't they?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's also Ross Barkley who has it. He has always seemed to step up when he's been in the England team. He was playing as recently as last autumn.
True, yeah.
He scored again in the Bulgaria game away, and he was playing well for Chelsea up until this crisis started. He just needs to get a run of games. But as you say, that the lineup in that game was definitely looking forward to the future, and there are quite a few players from it that are still involved in the squad today, 6 years on.
And so you've been to watch England at tournaments since as well?
Yes, I've been to one game each of the two tournaments that happened after that. So I went to the Russia game in Marseille at Euro 2016.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I was in one of the side stands, which meant that I didn't get ambushed by Russian hooligans at the end of the game. And that was a crushing disappointment, because yet again I saw a game that England didn't win, and we conceded with almost the last kick of the game from a Russian set piece.
Yeah,
England totally deserved to win that game, but obviously they didn't take their chances to get the second goal, and that's what cost them ultimately.
Yeah, and you went to the World Cup in 2018 as well.
Yeah, so I went to Kaliningrad, which is the Russian enclave, which is just to the east of Poland.
Yeah, that's right.
It used to be a German city called Königsberg until the end of World War II. And I went to I went to another dead rubber between England and Belgium, which right. Belgium won 1-0. And it was very bizarre in the build-up, because at the time, we knew that whoever finished top in that group would, on paper, have a trickier run to, for the rest of the tournament. So it was almost as if you weren't sure if you wanted England to win or even draw. And I remember there was talk about what lineup England should play. So you could rest players so that they're fitter later on in the tournament.
Yes, I remember it well. It was a bit of a predicament, wasn't it? That obviously the media wanted to play their card and say what we should do, and Gareth Southgate had his own mind made up as to what we done, and yeah, I guess it's safe to say that what he'd done played out quite well.
I totally agree, because at the end of the day, both Belgium and England went out in the semi-finals, so. You can't, they both made it as far as each other. So I think it was the right decision. Belgium also did the right thing, but you can't say that Belgium or England had the better outcome, because they both ultimately went out in the semi-finals.
No, you're right. I mean, and looking forwards, obviously we know what's not happening this summer, but looking forwards from an England perspective, do you think the future is bright?
Yeah, I do. What I've been thinking about recently is, whether this delay with the Euros, I think it is going to benefit us a lot, namely because I think Phil Foden is going to get a lot more game time with Manchester City. And I think that he will walk into England's midfield when he is a regular player with Man City. I think he is the key difference for us, and that he knows how to keep possession, which we have ultimately lacked on quite a few times on the international stage.
Yeah, no, it is all these little things that are being said. The fact that, say, Marcus Rashford, Harry Kane can get match fit or have time to get fit and then get match fit and ready for the Euros, and people like you say, Phil Foden, are all little inklings that you think, yes, no, this isn't too bad a situation with regards to England and football, that it's not the worst situation that could have happened. But yeah, we'll keep our fingers crossed. And yourself, you found yourself in Sweden at the moment, so watching England from afar.
Yes, yeah, I've moved to Stockholm at the start of 2018. So my wife is Swedish, so we live in her flat here in Stockholm, and it was quite a memorable first summer for me here, because obviously it was the World Cup and England ended up playing Sweden in the quarterfinals. Yeah. So I went to an English pub in Stockholm with my wife to watch the game, and the atmosphere was incredible.
Excellent, and no hard feelings from the Swedes.
No, my wife and I actually made it onto the main Swedish TV channel.
Okay.
Because we were interviewed before and after the game about, how she's Swedish and I'm English. And at the time we were engaged.
Yep.
We got married the year after. And I was joking that her engagement ring was still on her finger after the game, despite the fact that she obviously wasn't very happy with the result.
Good stuff. Good story. Like it. Well, Matthew, thank you very much for taking us back to, I say thank you to Costa Rica game, but no, thank you very much for sharing us your memories, not just of that game, but of Brazil in general, of that tournament. It's been really good to go back to and listen to from an England supporter's perspective.
It's my pleasure, Russell.
On Friday the 10th of July, Jack Charlton, one of England's World Cup winners, sadly passed away, aged 85. He was born back in 1935. And amazingly, Jack won 35 caps, but made his debut aged 29 at home to Scotland. And he went on to score 6 times.
Jack Charlton, yes, 5. Charlton makes it 5.
Greaves again. Ball. Must be one here. Charlton. Yes, it is. Jack Charlton. Jack Charlton. There he is, that brave, limping England hero. Jack Charlton makes it 2-1.
As a player, he was a one-man club, making 773 appearances for Leeds United between 1952 and 1973. He was a centre-back and played alongside Bobby Moore during England's World Cup win in '66. And as time goes on, those reunions of all the players will sadly get smaller and smaller, as Jack joins Bobby Moore, Ray Wilson, Alan Ball, Gordon Banks, Martin Peters, Peter Bonetti, Jimmy Armfield, Jerry Byrne, Norman Hunter, and of course Sir Alf Ramsey, as they were all part of that 1966 squad. 1966 wasn't his only World Cup success though. Personally, as a young boy with memories of the 1988 European Championships and 1990 World Cup, I remember it taking me by surprise when I found out that an Englishman was in charge of another country. I'd only ever really known Bobby Robson. It was as English as they come. But Jack took charge of the Republic of Ireland national team in 1986 and went on to become a bit of an Irish idol, beating England by a 0-0 in '88 and then meeting us again in 1990 when we drew 1-1 in Cagliari. They went on to famously beat Romania on penalties, before losing to the hosts Italy. Jack then took them to the 1994 World Cup in the USA, famously having a row on the touchline with an official against Mexico, before coming home after losing to Holland in the round of 16. One thing I do remember of Jack Charlton, though, was the Carlsberg England advert. Remember that one? Jack was the one driving the van, and he put in a challenge or two.
Come on, Chris, we're late, man. What do you do?
Hey, it's a shirt pull.
Well, you must shirt
Can I have your name, please?
John.
No more, please.
Thank you, as always. It's always great to hear from you and your stories. And I've got a fair few more to release. But if you'd like to contribute, please do get in touch. And whilst all the ones I have are fairly recent games, which I'm fine with, it would be great to hear some older anecdotes from games in the 80s or 90s. Did you go to Israel in 86 or Albania in 89? Or did you go to the US Cup in 1993? Please do drop me a line. And you can do that on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram. Or you can go retro. You can email me, 3lionspodcast@gmail.com. So until the next time, look after yourself. Cheers.